today on Green Country People and Places. You can probably already tell this is not your everyday museum. Just outside of Miami, Oklahoma, you will find one of the last original remaining strips of old Route 66.
Well, this is a Downy Woodpecker House.
Oklahoma's green country. It's full of unique places and interesting people. So you milk a goat as opposed to a cow.
Give me your wallet.
So come along with us and enjoy the ride. You can probably already tell this is not your everyday museum. We are at the
Mabee-Gerrer Museum of Art, Shawnee, Oklahoma.
And we have Daniel here today. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here, Tim.
And you're going to be our guide today. And first off, this is the coolest museum I've been to in a long time because you have lots of unique artifacts. But how did this all come about?
Well, I'm really excited to tell you. Well, this museum was actually founded by a monk.
Yeah.
We work very closely with St. Gregory's Abbey, and the monks came here in the late 1870s to minister to the Potawatomi Indians. Well, their mission when they came here was to educate, and so they thought, well, let's start a school and let's start a museum.
Well, that makes sense, I guess.
So these are European monks in Frontier, Oklahoma. And the museum that they designed has a pretty interesting kind of old European feel to it.
It's neat because this display right here has shrunken heads.
Raindrops keep falling on my head.
We have two shrunken heads, and the way we use these is they're from South America, and of course shrunken heads is now an illegal practice.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm never gonna stop the rain by complaining.
We call this our cabinet of curiosities, and it has just very interesting things in it from all around the world.
It's kind of like a world museum. Tulsa used to have an old museum where you had all sorts of stuff and it went away, and it's a shame. I don't know if there's anything like this in Oklahoma, is there?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So did the one monk do most of the collecting?
Yeah, most of the collection came from when he was traveling the world. He visited let's see, Europe and Africa and South America and the Caribbean, the Holy Land, and he did a lot of his collecting during that time.
They didn't have credit cards back then. How did he manage to travel so much?
That's a really interesting story. What happened was an abbot, who's the leader of a monastic community from Rome, came here and saw him sketching at this frontier monastery and said, you should send this young man to Rome to study art.
Okay.
And that's how his adventures began.
Gotcha. So he was an artist in his own right.
He was an artist, and since monks don't own personal property, a lot of the way he acquired this collection is through trading, and he was also a paintings restorer, and so he would trade his services or his painting portraits for different artifacts.
Now you do have, like a normal museum, some paintings, but this is actually a painting done by Father Gregory, correct?
Yeah, the one thing that I want to point out about this is how a young monk from Oklahoma ended up painting the official portrait of a pope in the Vatican.
Whoa, which pope?
This is Pope Pius X, he became pope around 1903, I believe. I told you that Father Gregory was, encouraged to study art in Rome. And when he was there is when the new pope was elected, and there was a call for entries for an official portrait of Pius X. And so Father Gregory painted him in this really kind of classical Italian style, but he painted him really true to life. And if you notice up here, the Pope has some warts on his face. Apparently a lot of the other artists, when they were painting portraits of the Pope, glossed over those warts and
cleaned them up a
idealized
bit, yeah.
So the Pope, when he saw this one, he says, I like this one because you have painted me warts and all.
Oh, that's great. Is that where that term came from? It might be. Might know a little more history than we thought.
And the Pope was also so pleased with this portrait that he gave Father Gregory his zucchetto, his hat.
So this is the actual Pope's cap?
Yes. And
Whoa.
since Pope Pius is a saint now, he's a canonized saint, this is actually a relic in the Catholic Church.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
telling me off camera too, there are two versions of this painting. You have the original up here, and the copy is in the Vatican.
After Father Gregory Guerra painted this portrait of the Pope, he convinced the Pope to let him take it to the World's Fair in St. Louis. So he shipped it back to America and entered in the World's Fair, and it was received very well. Then he brought it back to Oklahoma, painted a copy of it, then shipped the copy to Rome. We have the original, the Vatican has the copy.
Now this is the Egyptian section.
Yes.
So what we got?
We have animal mummies here. We have a selection of them. There is a mummified hawk and 2 mummified cats, but one of them is not what it seems. Can you figure out which one it is?
The one on the left.
The one on the left. You know, back in the day, there was a cult in Egypt, a cult of Bastet that worshipped cat god. So they would offer cats to this god at the temple.
Right.
Well, the one on the left is a fake. It's a small knockoff. No
Yeah.
cat inside.
Yeah, well, it'd be a small cat to begin with, too. And the look on his face is like he was a little surprised he was mummified. So the one next to it is an actual cat.
It's an actual cat, and we have taken it to a local clinic to actually have it x-rayed before, and there's bones and everything inside.
So why did they mummify animals?
They mummified everything.
Oh,
Humans
okay.
and animals.
It was
just
a
fits
thing to
into
do.
their religion and their worldview. Yeah.
Yeah, and to speak about the 800-pound mummy in the room, we have a sarcophagus here, and this is awesome. Yeah. This is from Egypt.
This is from Egypt. We have a sarcophagus and we have a mummy.
Yeah.
And the most common question we get is, well, was the mummy in the sarcophagus?
Right.
And the answer is both yes and no. Originally in Egypt, no. But whenever this collection was put together, it was a time before there was really great study in Egyptology. So it's kind of like, well, you get a package deal. If you get a mummy, you get a sarcophagus, and they just stuck her inside.
I can make you a deal here. I get you a sarcophagus, there'll be something in it. I can't say where it came from, but you're going to get it, right? That's
The giveaway, and this is, I don't think any woman would have a beard quite like that.
So your mummy's a female?
Our mummy's a female, yeah. Her name is Tutu. She's kind of the star of this museum. Everybody loves Tutu. In fact, she has her own Facebook page. You should go on Facebook and friend her.
For real?
Tutu Mummy on Facebook.
I don't even have a Facebook page yet. Of course, she's what?
2,300 years old.
Yeah, she's had more
on
time to do
Facebook.
it. She's tiny.
She's tiny, yeah. You know, their diets were a lot different than ours. And,
Yeah.
We also had her taken to the clinic and x-rayed, and the report showed that there were times in her life when she suffered malnutrition. She didn't always have what she needed to eat.
This is spectacular to look at. I mean, the bindings and the way they did the cloth to pull it together. And she's what, 4 foot tall?
Probably about maybe 4.5, 5 foot. She's, yeah, not as tall as you would expect a human being to be. A
Wow.
full-grown 40-year-old woman to be.
And is this breastplate and stuff made of clay? How did they do that?
I'm not sure what the breastplate material is, but I can tell you some about what's written on it.
That would be cool.
You know, whenever I told you, you know, there was a time when Egyptology wasn't studied as much as, you know, as an academic field. So when we got her, her name was Princess Mene. Well, we had a woman who reads hieroglyphics come in and read what it says on her breastplate, and we find out that her name is actually Tutu.
Really?
She's not a princess at all.
Yeah.
But she is, you know, certainly to have this sort of mummification, you would have to be of some sort of wealth.
Right.
But the breastplate will show the mummification process, and you can see different symbols of Egyptian spirituality in there. The scarab beetle with these wings on it was sacred to them. They imagined the sun being pushed across the sky the same way that a scarab beetle will push a dung ball across the sand.
How romantic. And then you can see her laid out on the table there while they're working on her.
Yeah, that's during the mummification process. That's what that scene illustrates.
Now when he was a young man, he never thought he'd see people stand in line to see the boy king. How to get
Father Gregory went to China, and these are some, he didn't get these from China, but they're from China?
Yeah, well, Father Gregory traveled to China, like you said.
A camel?
A camel, this camel, the ancient Chinese had similar beliefs to the ancient Egyptians, where if you wanted something in the afterlife, you'd put an image of it in your tomb. Someone wanted an image of a camel in the afterlife.
Yeah, okay, go figure.
We have this incredible Ming Dynasty egg jar.
That's Ming?
Ming, yeah.
Whoa.
For preserving eggs.
That's, eggs went into that? That thing's huge. Father Gregory really had eclectic taste, didn't he?
He really did. He collected things from all around the world, and he also particularly loved medieval religious art.
Really?
That comes from him being a monk, of course.
So is this a medieval carpenter's toolkit?
No, maybe something a little more delicate, maybe jewelry.
This is all ivory?
This is all ivory, yeah.
Whoa.
It's a really interesting piece, especially if you look at that dragon there on the top. And then there's a lot of scenes of courtship. I imagine this was giving as some sort of a wedding gift.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. I'm looking at some of this stuff. I mean, it feels ancient. It is old. It's 15th century, right?
Yeah, 15th century. He was really interested in that religious art and images of saints.
Wow, and this is gold leaf on the panel. And I'm really impressed in the fact that you have such an openness with your collection, because it's scary having something that old, that rare out, but you do it so people can get close and understand it.
We're very lucky to have very understanding and very polite, well-behaved guests.
And if they're not, you'll send this guy after them.
This is a Venetian suit of armor that we have.
Oh, the detailing is really nice. I mean, there's design work in every bit of it.
Considering that design work, it was probably not meant for battle as much as it was meant as military dress.
Well, and I would think that would be, how would you wear that and move?
Maybe you just stand at guard.
So the samurais had the right idea. This is lightweight. A samurai helmet, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, I got one. That's incredible. And that's about 1500s also. Well, I guess that was his era? No. He was 17. When was Father Gregory?
Father Gregory lived, he was born in the 1800s and lived until right after World War II.
Math's not my strong suit. Now, you have, really this is kind of a wealth of problems, because you have a tremendous amount of stuff you can't put out on display yet, right?
Oh, what you see here in our permanent galleries is about 5% of our whole collection. So we work with other institutions so that we will give pieces on loan so that they can go out in other places, or when we do a rotating exhibit, we'll put pieces out on display. Mm-hmm. We want people to see. There's a lot of really great treasures that we have, and we want people to see them.
This is a phenomenal little jewel hidden in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and we barely dipped our toe in what they have here, so I do appreciate the tour. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
Coulda won a Grammy, buried in his jammies. Born in Arizona, moved to Babylonia. Born in Arizona, got a condo made of stoner.
Not one of our smoother locations that we've ever been to, but it's a very special one. Just outside of Miami, Oklahoma, you will find one of the last original remaining strips of old Route 66. It's 9 feet wide. You can even see the curbs on the sides, and it's about 3 miles long.
When it goes to St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, Oklahoma City looks so pretty, you'll see.
There's only one other section around that's still remaining like this, and this is on the historic landmarks list. It's an amazing little bit of history to be able to drive down the actual pavement of the original Route 66. You can imagine how many people went on vacation across the country using this road way back when, and this little bit of history still remains. Like I said, it's not really smooth, but it is really, really cool. We are in Broken Arrow at Persimmon Hollow, which is a great little village of craft shops. And the place we stopped today is Birdhouses by Mark, and you're Mark.
Yes.
Thank you for having us today.
Thank you for being here.
I think it's so cool. My wife loves birdhouses, and looking around here, I'm probably going to be going home with my wallet a little bit lighter. But tell me, first off, how'd you get into birdhouses? Well, you didn't get into them. How'd you get started in them?
Well, about 15, 20 years ago, I was looking for something to maybe like plan for retirement, and thought I should turn into a hobby into something that I could maybe make a little bit of extra money with.
Yeah.
So I started looking at birdhouses. These are mostly bluebird houses here. I have one wood duck birdhouse. These are for wood ducks.
Or really big bluebird.
Really big. Yes. These are all bluebird houses here of various designs. This is what they call a slotted bluebird house. This has a slot in it because a lot of the bluebirders and everyone is concerned about sparrows.
Yes.
Sparrows has a habit of killing bluebirds, and this slotted bluebird house here allows enough of an entrance that if a bluebird is in there and a sparrow gets in there, they are allowed an escape route because it is so wide. This particular one is a design that is sanctioned by the North American Bluebird Society. It is called a Peterson Bluebird House.
So you're putting a lot of thought and research into it.
Oh yes, yes. All of my designs for my bluebird houses come directly from the North American Bluebird Society and built to their specifications. The one thing that you need to remember about when you're doing anything with birdhouses, if you stain them or treat them or anything, that you do not get any materials like that inside the birdhouse themselves, because all of the staining materials could be harmful to small birds when they hatch, because they have a tendency to peck at stuff, and you don't want them eating any of that. So sometimes says, well, the inside of that house looks kind of rough. Well, it is rough, and it's rough for a reason, because we want it all natural for the birds so we don't harm them.
Okay, this is a birdhouse?
This is actually a cardinal nesting box. Some people think that all birds naturally nest in a house. Some don't, such as cardinals and barn swallows do not nest in a nesting box. They nest on platforms. This one was designed for cardinals. Cardinals, if you'll notice, when you watch them flying, they will fly into bushes. That's where they will typically nest, is in a bush.
So where would you mount this then?
About 2, 3, 4 feet off the ground in a bush.
Now, to move from the lower end up to the chalet, this is pretty interesting. You actually have stonework on the bottom.
Yes,
and
this is one of my most popular birdhouses, and it's this is river rock that I have put around the bottom of it. These, of course, are natural sticks that are decorating it, and it has a cedar finish. It's all made out of 100% cedar. And that it has ventilation, because you do need ventilation for your birdhouses. It also has drainage in the bottom of it, and when this is not completely finished yet, but it will have a copper roof cap on it when it is through. So it has all the essentials that a bird needs: ventilation, a good home, and drainage. Well, this is a downy woodpecker house.
So this is made specifically for the downy woodpecker?
Yes.
Not other woodpeckers?
Not other woodpeckers, no.
Oh, there are different sizes.
There are different sizes of woodpeckers. And I always like to use, whenever possible, a good, high-quality glue that is weather resistant, and also screws. It makes a nice, sturdy birdhouse.
And as always with glue, it wants to slip and slide a little on you.
Always, yes.
Now, you have a big shop at your house, right?
Yes, I will do, I have table saws and drills and band saws, and that I just don't have room for here. And this allows me to cut most of my larger pieces before I actually get here, and I can come here for the final assembly.
Gotcha.
That way I can spend time at my store at the same time I'm building birdhouses.
Well, and people get to come in and see you working. That's kind of neat.
Exactly.
It's like coming into Uncle Mark's workshop.
There you go.
So I've noticed that a lot of birdhouses I see are made from old fences, and they're already gray and stuff like that. I kind of like the fact that you're working with new wood. It smells great, and the people who buy the stuff will be able to take it home and then watch it age in patina.
Exactly.
You know, I'm looking around at the variety of work you do too while you're screwing that in, and the detail of your work is really, really impressive. I mean, you are making birdhouses with shingled roofs on them.
Yes.
And I have an example here of one that is just incredible. I mean, you've got the dormer windows. You can actually see inside. I'm almost surprised you don't have furniture in there. But these are really neat little shingles. How do you do these?
They're all done by hand.
You're kidding me.
No. And each shingle is applied individually with glue. Now that we have the Woodpecker House almost complete, the only thing that is left is the roof. And this will go on with a support up here and a pin in the top to keep it from blowing off in the wind. There is drainage in the bottom. There is ventilation here under the roof. And we have the correct size hole for the woodpecker. And this will be ready to go up in a tree and ready for the next downy woodpecker that comes along looking for a home.
Now this is pretty cool. Is this a glass top?
This is actually stained glass, and I guess I'll reveal my little secret here. This is actually made by a company. The roof is actually a fence post cap.
Oh, neat.
And I take the fence post cap and then I construct the rest of the birdhouse underneath it and then adorn it with the cap on it.
Now this isn't a birdhouse, but you also do some engraving?
Yes, well, it's a routing. It's routing. I started making signs a few years ago, and people liked them so well that it's almost now about a quarter of my business is making either custom signs or stock signs that I have that I put into cedar and then finish them off with polyurethane. So put a hanger on them.
Little birdie, why do you fly upside down? It's amazing that the way you get around.
This is potato jewelry.
From potatoes?
From actual potatoes. We cut the potatoes into sizes, and then we allow them to dry thoroughly, and then we paint them with acrylic, and then we string them and make decorations out of them. And it is potato jewelry made out of real potatoes.
And who's making these?
Myself and my mom.
Your mom?
Yes. My mom is 90 years old.
That is
and
great.
She's a long-time crafter. She can't get out and go to a lot of the craft shows and do things anymore. And so we get together and make the jewelry, and then I bring it down to my store.
That's pretty cool. And I guess if you get hungry, you got a snack with you.
Well, maybe.
You're doing the painting on these.
Well, this is where the family aspect just keeps coming in here because my daughter-in-law actually does the painting. I was trying to learn how to paint one day, and my talents don't necessarily extend to the end of a paintbrush. She tried it one time and it came out almost perfect, so I decided not to waste my time trying to do this, and so I build the birdhouses and she paints them for me.
So now you're in industry.
I'm in industry, so to speak.
Okay, is that a really, really short birdhouse here? What's going on?
Well, this is actually a bird feeder, and this is kind of a unique bird feeder that most people are not aware of. This is what is called an upside-down suet feeder.
Okay.
It's called that because birds actually feed from the bottom of it.
Oh, so you drop those suet cakes inside, and then they hang on the bottom here at their feet and peck up.
What makes this thing so unique and so interesting to a lot of birders is that, for the most part, only songbirds can hang upside down to heat.
Starlings, grackles don't show up.
Exactly. Those are what I call the nuisance birds. They cannot hang upside down to eat. Only the songbirds can.
We put out about $10 worth of bird feed every 3 or 4 days, and about 90% of it's taken by the grackles and everybody else.
That's right. This little feeder will hold 2 to 3 suet cakes. You just hang it up on your patio or under a tree, and you watch the songbirds come, and they'll pick the suet right out.
It's going on my list right now. Okay. Ladybugs? What's that?
These are ladybug houses. And you can put these in your garden area. You know, ladybugs will eat aphids, and they are very beneficial to your garden area. The ladybug houses essentially provide them shelter from weather and from predators. So it's used more of a shelter than anything else.
Okay, what goes in here or comes out of these?
Okay, this is a bat house.
This one?
Yes, bat houses are becoming quite popular. As people are, years ago, people used to be terrified of bats. You mentioned bats, and people normally think of 2 things: rabies and stuff getting in your hair.
And vampires.
Yeah, and vampires, yes. As we're getting more and more educated about the value of the bats, we start to realize how valuable bats really are to society and the function that they fulfill. For example, a bat will eat its weight in mosquitoes every single night.
Holy cow.
So if you've got 20 or 30 bats in your area, multiply that by the number of mosquitoes, you can see that they can wipe out a mosquito population, or at least control it very easily.
Wow. So bats go up in here. Was the
Yes.
mesh to give them something to grab onto?
The mesh gives them something to grab onto and crawl up inside there. That's my large 3-chamber bat house, and it's made out of cedar. These are butterfly houses, and these are for people to put in their garden, and they're quite a bit more for decoration than anything else.
Yeah.
People think, well, I'll buy a butterfly house and start raising butterflies. Well, that's not really what happens there.
It's a marketing thing.
Well, a little bit, but the truth of the factor is that butterflies like to get into old dead trees and lay their eggs behind leaves and bark and so forth. The back of the butterfly house opens up, and you can actually put dead leaves, bark, and so forth in there. Mount these in your garden area, in your butterfly garden specifically, and if you're real lucky, the butterflies might think it's an old hollow log and go in there and actually lay their eggs.
I gotcha. And on part of your routing work you do too, you do desktop things, right?
Yes, I do custom name plaques.
Yeah, I see one design flaw though. How many Mark Roberts can you sell to?
Well, I've actually had at least 1 or 2 people with my same name that have actually bought one.
You might want to think about some more names.